You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. Good evening. It is Sunday, February 22nd, 2026. For those of us that have been paying attention to the European computer model going all the way back to last week have noticed a powerhouse winter storm that continued to pop up on the models that even showed the wind flow over Lake Michigan, bringing some snow into the Chicago area. That's been the highlight for us Chicagoans looking at the storm system last week. But whether this storm system was going to actually develop or not was something that many of us kind of just overlooked here in the Midwest because it just looked too impressive for anything to... It was just super impressive, and whether something's going to happen or not was just... Well, we leave that up to the East Coast forecasters. But this storm system looks like it has developed and it's forecasted and it's in the process of becoming a bomb cyclone if it hasn't already. In fact, it has. It's dropped 35 MB in the past 24 hours, perhaps even more by now. And forecasters say it's going to drop to 970 MB by the time the thing starts to pull away by tomorrow morning. European computer model shows on windy.com shows the thing dropping to 28.6 inches of mercury, hurricane strength regarding barometric pressure. This storm system is colliding with very cold air on the backside with copious amounts of moisture on the front side, and actually it's riding right along the boundary of the Gulf Stream and the cold air. It's that contrast in temperature that's causing the system to blow up the way it is into something as intense as it is. We also have the storm system starting off as rain for many of these East Coast cities, and the expectation, in fact, it already happened because I've seen several pictures already of the snowfall in Lakewood, New Jersey. The most beautiful snow that you can possibly see, really. It's just totally magnificent. The snow is sticking to the trees, and it's something quite phenomenal for those people that are living there. You have a wet, sticky snow right now, and the snow, as it becomes heavier overnight, it eventually turns into something that we call heart attack snow. It's something dangerous to shovel, which means that it's more dangerous than what it appears because of the heavy, wet nature of the snow. The National Weather Service tells us that the snow-to-water ratio will be between 9 and 10 to 1 this evening. That's a wet snow, but then it turns into 12 to 14 to 1 as we go through the night. That's when you have the other hazard of the blowing snow. We would have that hazard actually even without that 12 to 14 to 1 because of the strong winds that are forecasted to develop of 35 to 50 mile per hour sustained winds with gusts to 60 to 70 miles per hour in many of those coastal locations. We have actually potentially two bullseye that could set up. It's the Baltimore National Weather Service that used the interesting terminology that's responsible for bringing this into the light, for making this public, really. It's quite an attractive word when they don't just call it an inverted trough, which is really what it is, but they're calling it a Norman trough, and just to to get that. They're calling it a Norland trough. That's named after, part of that word is named after a meteorologist who noticed these trends in nor'easters that sometimes develop. What it is it's an inverted trough, which is what the Mount Holly, New Jersey National Weather Service is referring to it as. And that's when instead of it dipping southward as general troughs do, this one makes a bulge northward. What it does is it brings the moisture much further west than what would ordinarily be expected. So what's interesting is that what happened is the storm was actually moving 50 miles further east than what was originally forecasted. But because of this inverted trough, the precipitation remains heavy. It actually might even become heavier. In fact, the Philadelphia metro area was put under a warning criteria, all because of this inverted trough. From what I understand, this is producing heavy snowfall forecast accumulations for that area, putting them under the warning criteria for eastern Pennsylvania. Let's skip over the New Jersey area for just a second, because there's more clarity on the southeast Massachusetts, at least the dynamics behind what's happening. The southeast Massachusetts will be in the bullseye for the storm system. That's the forecast, as regardless of whether the storm track goes 50 miles east or not, both the models and climatology tells us that the storm will reach a point of 40 degrees north latitude, 70 degrees west longitude, and that brings the heavy snow over into southeast Massachusetts. The deformation zone is going to be headed towards the southeast Massachusetts and also along the coast. We're just going to speak about a couple of the let's see here. Three interacting mesoscale features that are going to be responsible for bringing the heavy snow to the East Coast. Number one is that inverted Norland trough. It's a secondary band, of which is an enhanced primary band. Both. It will bring a secondary band of a bullseye, but it also may enhance the primary band bullseye. That's the thinking right now for eastern Pennsylvania and portions of New Jersey. The frontogenesis is the strong low to mid-level frontogenesis along the coastal Barcelinic zone. That also in that area is where we would have the heavy snow. That's something that could even be picked up probably on the global models, but especially the high-resolution models. And the band evolution, the initial snow band translates northward, transitions to a pivoting deformation band. The dendritic growth zone is deep saturation, and it supports 2 to 4 inches of snowfall per hour. That's in the low-level jet, it's 65 to 75 knots. That's at the 950 MB level. That's lifting northward into the southern New England overnight. So this supports widespread wind damage and gusts. The heavy wet snow plus the strong winds produces an elevated power outage risk. That's what the National Weather Service tells us. We have tropical storm force sustained winds expected along the East Coast, gusts approaching 70 miles per hour, as we pointed out, and we also have to deal with the coastal flooding. But what's also something that's very interesting, pointed out by the Baltimore National Weather Service, is the record low tides. It's called the blowout tide, which happens right after the storm. The winds veer sharply northwest. It actually blows the water away from the shore. This is very relevant to the Chesapeake Bay area. And the rapid pressure rise reinforces this effect. Abnormally low water levels in the Chesapeake Bay and the surrounding areas. This is a well understood concept, but it's a dramatic reversal, especially from what's happening in other portions of the East Coast where we have flooding and impact of flooding. Another interesting point, a lot of the storms I've noticed happen to occur when the gravitational pull is very strong on the ocean. That happens around the new moon and the mid part of the month. But right now, where the gravitational pull is the least on the ocean, we're right in between the 1st and the 15th of the month. So that actually works to benefit in reducing some of the hazards of the flooding. But nonetheless, the storm is a powerhouse storm. It's developing at a rapid pace, and therefore flooding is expected nonetheless. We spoke a little bit about the complexity. The global models handle the large-scale track and the rapid deepening well, but they do struggle with the band placement and the mesoscale snowfall maximum. The high-resolution models pick up on that banding, but they're not able to pinpoint where or when the bands lock in. The forecast certainty increases. It will increase once the radar confirms this band locking. We have the New York City National Weather Service has manually adjusted snowfall downward for the average snowfall amounts, but in terms of the localized amounts, it actually might end up being higher than what's being forecasted, tells us the Baltimore National Weather Service. They say the models are underdoing the localized snowfall amounts due to the inverted trough. We have the orographic enhancement that has been pointed out, that the east places on the eastward parts of the mountains and the southward, it's actually the northward slopes. They may receive an uplift, an upslope snow that may increase the snowfall rates for those areas. And Now we get into the eastern portions of New Jersey, the central portions of New Jersey, East Ocean County, along with some of the surrounding counties. This includes the Lakewood is the largest city in Ocean County. Now, that area is forecasted to get anywhere between 18 and 30 inches. Some maps do show 24 to 30 inches. The National Weather Service official forecast seems to be 18 to 24, but they do show something different on the map. Now, the synoptic setup that's responsible for producing that is there's three possibilities. Either that's coming from the main storm, that's the actual area to the northwest of the area to the northwest of the storm track is where the heaviest snowfall occurs from these nor'easters, but also the inverted trough is something which is developing pretty close to there, so that also could be responsible for the higher snowfall rates over there. But as of recently, that's been more associated with the higher snowfall totals over eastern Pennsylvania and why the warning has been covering Philadelphia. The other possibility is that it's a combination of the two. So a couple of those things could happen. If the 24 to 30 inches is because of an overlap between the inverted trough and also the peak bullseye associated with just being in the northwest part of the storm track, and then that overlap doesn't happen, so then we would have a reduced snowfall amount. But if that 24 to 30 inches is due to it being within a certain proximity to the center of the storm, due to it being in the deformation zone, which is separate from the inverted, the inverted Norland trough, so then you would have if the inverted Norland trough should come over the area, we would see higher amounts, but that's very unlikely. Massachusetts may get 2 to 4 inches of snow per hour. Road crews generally are not able to keep up with the snow when it's an inch of snow per hour or higher, so they're going to have a difficult time keeping up with the snow. Word is out that all of the public schools in New York City have been canceled, both in person and remote, due to this potentially historic snow event. There are parts of the storm that have not been covered in this particular episode, but were covered in the previous episode, which goes more in depth regarding this. We will point out, however, a little bit of a ruchnius component to it, that we're approaching the very end of Shovavim. We're at the Truma Tetzaveh, we're in Parshas Tetzaveh. This is the end of Shovavim. This is a time of Tshuva. Rav Kalman Weiner Zecher Tzadik U'Bracha in Ner Yisrael, he was the only Rebbe that I had that actually had a Shelig Shmuz. And although I was never Zecher to be at the actual Shelig Shmuz, he did tell me some of the Yisodos on the phone. So I think it's consistent with the overall theme of both Shovavim and the month of Adar, especially a crippling storm like this, where it actually cancels everything. So one of the differences between rain and snow is that rain is something that falls and it flows. It flows to wherever it goes, and snow is something that falls and stays put. And that's really what the snow represents. In a big storm, everything gets canceled. As we just heard, things are canceled. In this case, even the remote learning in many locations are canceled. So that's the purpose of all that, is to bring about a hisponenus. Sometimes the reason why people end up doing averos, sometimes being bound to time is a shmiras hachet. It keeps us away from chatoim, but at the same time, it prevents us from doing a cheshbon hanefesh. We always have to be someplace at a certain time, but when everything is canceled, it's a time where we can actually do a hisponenus, and it actually is an eis ratzon for tshuva. We see this even in the psukim that tell us that after we've done tshuva, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings us a kapara, and it cleanses our neshama and makes it as white as snow. We see this in the psukim, that it actually compares, the word snow actually pops up in the pasuk. So he was saying that it's both an eis ratzon for tshuva. It also could be a siman that the tshuva was miskabel. It's coming at the very end of Shovavim, and it's also affecting a population that very much keeps Shovavim. So I think there is significance to that. And also it's the month of Adar. If you take the gematria of Shelig, this is very interesting. The gematria of Shelig and the word Kis Simcha, it's actually the same. Kis Shelig is the same gematria as Simcha. So there's a significance in that, in Mishenichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha. Another thing that people could think about is this is an opportunity a lot of times to do chesed, and a lot of times people need their places to be shoveled. I remember in yeshiva we went out and we shoveled people's homes, and it made a tremendous kiddush Hashem. So there's chesed that people are able to do. Also, there's a danger, and it's a mitzvah to keep all of those safety protocols, which you could find in the National Weather Service website. When people go out in their cars, to always have a winter storm kit, and it goes well beyond that. But they'll tell you to check up on anyone elderly, anyone who lives alone. These are things that people could do during a time like this. And also, another interesting thing is that snow is actually a mikvah. It's actually a kosher mikvah. So it's not just symbolic of purification. It actually, practically speaking, lihalacha, could be used. It's a mikvah mamish. And a person could say, well, what type of person goes into the snow? We've had it in our history. People who utilize the snow as a mikvah, but you can also, for kalim as well, you could use the snow as a mikvah. The mikvah, it has to have 40 saws, and the snowfall, as long as it's attached, it certainly qualifies for that, and certainly a storm like this. So this is, if you view it in the right way, there's a lot of siman tov that one could look at it, and the main thing is to stay safe. And also another thing that I remember Rav Kalman Weiner of Zecher Tzadik Yivrocha said is that he compared the gematria of Sheleg to Emes, but I didn't get to hear anything further than that. There's a certain type of gematria which would actually bring Sheleg not to 333, but would actually bring you to 9. And there's a certain type of gematria which would bring Emes to 9. This type of gematria, it doesn't go 303, it's just 333, and Emes is just 1, 4, and 4. So you end up getting, each one is 9. So what part of snow would increase the MS? And the pshat in that is that when everything is covered with snow, so it covers up all chitzonius. You no longer could you see people by their cars or by their houses. Everyone's the same. We find also white being something symbolic of that, like on Yom Kippur when it was a time of shidduchim, when everyone got dressed up the same and they were dressed up in white. So there's something, part of the purification is also seeing everything the same, as seeing that everyone has the same house, the same car, and you could just focus on the other person as a human being without seeing anything in particular. So the world is a stronger reflection of Emes after especially very large snowstorms. So these are different things to keep in mind, and perhaps these things can inspire additional thoughts in Ruchnius. I know this episode is being placed on many platforms. One of them is the 24/6, and I thought I would just add that in. So, also, if Lakewood does indeed end up being the bullseye, that's an additional support to a lot of this. So, I wish everyone a wonderful night, a wonderful week. Thank you for listening. Stay safe. And for more in-depth details about the storm, the previous episode might have those details, which this episode didn't cover.